Taiho wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at the clock on the construction site wall. It was only 3 in the afternoon, but his supervisor had told everyone to go home early. Something about a meeting with the new investors. Taiho did not care about investors. He cared about the extra 2 hours of rest his tired body would get. He grabbed his lunch bag from his locker and walked toward the small park 3 blocks away. This was his favorite place in all of Seoul. It was nothing special, really. Just a few benches, some old trees, and a fountain that had stopped working years ago. But it was quiet. And quiet was something Taiho valued more than gold. The autumn wind was cold today. Taiho pulled his worn jacket tighter around his shoulders and sat on his usual bench. He opened his lunch bag and smiled at what he found inside. An egg salad sandwich. He had made it himself this morning, using his mother's recipe. She had taught him before she moved to Busan to live with his aunt. Every bite reminded him of home. He was about to take his first bite when he noticed her. A young woman sat at the far end of the park, on a bench near the broken fountain. She was beautiful in a way that made Taiho uncomfortable. Not because she was intimidating, but because she looked like she did not belong here. Her clothes were strange. She wore a long coat that seemed to shimmer when the light hit it, and her shoes looked like they had never touched dirt before. Her black hair fell past her shoulders like silk. Her skin was so pale it almost glowed. But what caught Taiho's attention was not her beauty. It was the look on her face. She looked lost, confused, like a child who had wandered away from her parents, could not find her way back. He watched as she stood up and walked toward a vending machine near the park entrance. She stared at it for a long time. Then she pulled something from her pocket. Coins. She looked at them like she had never seen coins before in her life. She tried to put one into the machine, but it was the wrong slot. She tried again. Wrong again? Her shoulders fell in defeat. Taiho felt something twist in his chest. He knew that feeling. The feeling of being alone in a world that did not make sense. He had felt it many times after his father died, when he was just 15 years old. Before he could talk himself out of it, he stood up and walked toward her. "Excuse me," he said softly. "Do you need help?" She turned to look at him, and Taiho almost forgot how to breathe. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black, but there was something behind them, something ancient and tired and sad. It was like looking into a well that had no bottom. "I am trying to purchase water," she said. Her Korean was perfect, but the way she spoke was strange. Too formal, too careful. Like someone who had learned the language from a textbook but never used it with real people. "Here, let me show you," Taiho said. He took the coins from her hand and showed her which ones to use. He pointed to the slot and demonstrated how to insert them. A bottle of water fell to the bottom of the machine. He handed it to her. "Thank you," she said. She looked at the bottle like it was a precious treasure. Taiho nodded and turned to go back to his bench. But something made him stop. He looked back at her. She was still standing there, holding the water bottle, looking more lost than before. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I am fine," she said quickly. Too quickly, Taiho hesitated. His mother had always told him not to bother strangers. But his mother had also told him something else. She had said that kindness was never a waste, even if the other person did not deserve it. "Would you like to sit down?" he asked, pointing to his bench. "It is warmer over there. The trees block the wind." She studied him for a long moment. Her eyes moved across his face like she was reading a book. Taiho felt exposed, like she could see every secret he had ever kept. But he did not look away. Finally, she nodded. They walked to the bench together and sat down. Taiho left a respectful distance between them. He picked up his sandwich and was about to eat when he heard it. Her stomach growled. It was loud. Very loud. The kind of growl that echoed across the empty park. The woman's face turned red. She looked down at her lap, clearly embarrassed. Taiho had never seen anyone look so mortified by something so normal. He looked at his sandwich. Then he looked at her. Then he looked at his sandwich again. His mother's voice echoed in his head. A meal shared is a meal doubled. Without thinking too hard about it, Taiho tore his sandwich in half. He held one piece out to her. "Here," he said. "You look hungry?" She stared at the sandwich like he had just offered her a piece of the sun. Her eyes went wide. Her lips parted slightly. For a moment, she did not move at all. "Why?" she whispered. Taeho shrugged. "Because you are hungry, and I have enough, but you do not know me." So, she continued to stare at him. Taeho began to feel awkward. Maybe he had made a mistake. Maybe she was allergic to eggs. Maybe offering food to strangers was rude in whatever country she came from. He was about to apologize and take back the sandwich. She reached out and took it from his hand. Her fingers brushed against his, and Taeho felt a shock run through his body, like static electricity, but warmer. Deeper, she brought the sandwich to her lips and took a small bite. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her eyes went wide. She looked at the sandwich like it had just revealed the secrets of the universe to her. She said something in a language Taeho had never heard before. It sounded like music and thunder mixed together. "This is..." She paused, searching for the right word. "This is wonderful." Taeho smiled. "It is just a sandwich. My mother taught me how to make it. Your mother is very talented. I will tell her you said that. She will be happy." They ate in silence. The sun began to set over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Taeho finished his half of the sandwich and leaned back on the bench. He felt at peace. He glanced at the woman beside him. For just a second, just a single heartbeat, he saw something strange. Her eyes seemed to shimmer. The dark brown color flickered, and for an instant they looked silver, like mirrors reflecting starlight. But then he blinked, and her eyes were normal again. Dark and deep and tired. Taeho rubbed his own eyes. He had been working too hard lately. He was seeing things that were not there. "Thank you," the woman said softly, "for the food and for your kindness." "It was nothing," Taeho said. She looked at him with an expression he could not read. "No," she said. "It was not nothing. It was everything." Taeho did not understand what she meant, but before he could ask, she stood up and straightened her strange coat. "I must go," she said, "but I hope we will meet again." And then she walked away, disappearing into the growing darkness. Taeho sat alone on the bench for a long time. He thought about her strange eyes, her formal words, her wonder at a simple sandwich. He had a feeling his life was about to change. He did not know how. He did not know why, but somewhere deep in his heart, he knew that this was just the beginning. The next day, Taeho went to the park again. He told himself it was because he liked the quiet. He told himself it was because the weather was nice. But deep down he knew the truth. He was hoping to see her again. She was not there. He went again the day after. And the day after that, each time the bench near the broken fountain was empty. Each time, he ate his sandwich alone. On the fourth day, Taeho had almost given up hope. He sat on his bench, unwrapped his lunch, and sighed. Maybe she had been a tourist. Maybe she had gone back to whatever strange country she came from. Maybe he would never see her again. Is this seat taken? Taeho looked up so fast he almost hurt his neck. She was standing right in front of him. The same beautiful face. The same strange clothes. The same deep, dark eyes. "No," he said quickly. "Please, sit down." She sat beside him, closer than last time. Taeho noticed she was wearing his jacket. The old worn jacket he wore to work every day. He had not even realized she had taken it. She must have still been wearing it when she left that first night. "I should return this," she said, touching the jacket. "But it is very warm. I hope you do not mind that I borrowed it." "Keep it," Taeho said before he could stop himself. "It looks better on you anyway." She smiled. It was a small smile, barely there, but it made her whole face light up. Taeho felt his heart skip a beat. "I am Vela," she said. "I realized I never told you my name." "I am Taeho. Nice to meet you, Vela." "Taeho," she repeated slowly, like she was tasting the word. "It is a good name." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Taeho ate his sandwich. This time, he had made two. He handed one to Vela without a word. She took it with a grateful nod and began to eat. "May I ask you something?" Vela said after a while. "Of course." Why did you share your food with me? That first day, you did not know me. You did not know anything about me. I could have been anyone. I could have been dangerous. Taiho thought about the question. It was strange. No one had ever asked him to explain kindness before. I do not know, he admitted. You looked hungry. You looked lost. I had food. It seemed like the right thing to do. But you expected nothing in return? What would I expect? It was just a sandwich. Vela was quiet for a long moment. She looked at him with those deep, endless eyes. Taiho felt like she was searching for something. He did not know what. Where I come from, she said slowly, kindness is rare. People do not give unless they expect to receive. Every gift has a price. Every smile hides a knife. That sounds like a terrible place to live. It is, Vela said softly. It is very terrible and very lonely. The sadness in her voice made Taiho's chest hurt. He did not know why he cared so much about this strange woman he had just met. But he did. He cared more than he could explain. Tell me about your life, Vela said suddenly. I want to know everything about you. Taiho laughed. There's nothing interesting to tell. I am just a construction worker. I build buildings. I come to this park. I eat sandwiches. That is my whole life. Tell me anyway, so Taiho told her. He talked about growing up in Busan, a city by the sea. He told her about his father, who had worked on fishing boats until the ocean took him. He told her about his mother, who had worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. He told her about moving to Seoul to find work, about the tiny apartment he lived in alone, about the dreams he had of someday traveling to Jeju Island to see the beaches. Vela listened to every word. She asked questions. Simple questions. What did the sea smell like? What was his favorite food as a child? What did he think about when he looked at the stars? No one had ever asked Taiho these questions before. No one had ever seemed so interested in his boring, ordinary life. What about you? Taiho asked when he was done. What is your life like? Vela's face changed. A shadow passed over her eyes. For a moment, she looked 1,000 years old. My life is complicated, she said. I have responsibilities. Many responsibilities. I make decisions that affect many people. Sometimes I forget what it feels like to simply sit in a park and eat a sandwich. That sounds exhausting. It is. The sun was beginning to set. The sky turned golden, then orange, then pink. The air grew cold. Taiho noticed Vela was shivering, even with his jacket on. Without thinking, he moved closer to her. He rubbed his hands together to warm them, then gently placed them over hers. Vela froze. Her entire body went stiff. She looked at their hands like she had never seen such a thing before. What are you doing? She whispered. Your hands are cold, Taiho said simply. I am warming them, but you will get cold. I am used to it. I work outside all day. A little cold will not hurt me. Vela did not pull away. She stared at their hands for a long time. When she finally looked up at Taiho, there were tears in her eyes. Why are you so kind? She asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. Why do you care about a stranger you just met? Taiho did not know how to answer. He thought about his mother. He thought about his father, who used to help anyone who asked. He thought about all the times he had been alone and wished someone would be kind to him. Because the world is hard, he said finally, and it is easier when people are kind to each other. That is all. A tear rolled down Vela's cheek. She wiped it away quickly, like she was embarrassed. Suddenly something on her wrist began to glow. Taiho looked down and saw a thin bracelet he had not noticed before. It was pulsing with soft blue light. Vela's face changed. The softness disappeared, replaced by something hard and cold. She stood up quickly, pulling her hands away from Taiho's. I have to go, she said. Her voice was different now. Harder. More formal. Is everything okay? Yes. No. I do not know. She looked at him with those endless eyes. I want to see you again. But I do not know if it is possible. Why not? She did not answer. Instead, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his cheek. Just a quick kiss, soft as a butterfly wing. "Thank you, Taiho," she said, "for reminding me what kindness feels like." And then she was gone. She walked away quickly, disappearing into the shadows of the park. Taiho tried to follow her, but when he turned the corner, she had vanished. Like she had never existed at all. Taiho touched his cheek where she had kissed him. His skin was still warm. He looked up at the sky. The stars were coming out one by one. Somewhere up there, among those distant lights, he felt like something important was happening. Something that involved him? He did not know it yet, but his life was about to change forever. The woman he had shared his sandwich with was not just a lost tourist. She was the most powerful being in the galaxy, and she had just decided that he was the most interesting thing in the universe. 3 days passed. Taiho went to work. He came home. He ate dinner alone. He tried not to think about Vela, but she was always there in the back of his mind. Her sad eyes, her strange questions, the way she had looked at a simple sandwich like it was made of gold. On the 4th morning, everything changed. Taiho woke up to a loud knock on his door. He looked at the clock. It was 5 in the morning. The sun was not even up yet. He stumbled out of bed, still half asleep, and opened the door. 3 men stood in the hallway. They were tall, very tall, over 2 meters each. They wore black suits that fit too perfectly, and their faces were completely expressionless. But that was not the strange part. The strange part was their skin. It was gray, not sick gray, not pale gray, gray like stone, gray like metal, gray like nothing Taiho had ever seen before. "Taiho," one of them said. It was not a question. "You will come with us." Taiho's heart began to pound. "Who are you? What do you want?" "The Supreme Sovereign has requested your presence. You will come with us now." "The what?" The gray men did not answer. One of them reached out and grabbed Taiho's arm. His grip was like iron. Taiho tried to pull away, but it was useless. "Wait," Taiho said, his voice shaking. "Let me at least put on some clothes." The gray men looked at each other. Something passed between them, some kind of silent communication. Then the one holding Taiho's arm let go. "You have 2 minutes," he said. Taiho rushed back into his apartment. His hands were shaking as he pulled on his work clothes. He thought about running. He thought about calling the police. But something told him it would not matter. Whoever these men were, they would find him no matter where he went. When he came back to the door, the gray men were waiting. They led him down the stairs and out of the building. A black vehicle was parked on the street. It looked like a car, but it made no sound. It floated several centimeters off the ground. Taiho got inside. He had no choice. The vehicle rose into the sky. Taiho watched through the window as Seoul grew smaller and smaller beneath him. The buildings became toys. The streets became lines. The whole city became just a spot of light in the darkness. They flew higher and higher. The blue sky turned dark. Stars appeared all around them. Taiho realized they were in space. He was in space. He, a simple construction worker from Busan, was flying through the stars. He should have been terrified. He should have been screaming. But instead, he felt strangely calm. Like this was always meant to happen. The vehicle approached a massive ship. No, not a ship. City. A floating city made of crystal and light. It was bigger than anything Taiho had ever seen. Bigger than Seoul. Bigger than any place on Earth. It hung in the darkness like a second moon, glowing with soft golden light. They landed inside the ship, in a hangar filled with hundreds of other vehicles. Strange beings walked everywhere. Taiho saw creatures with 4 arms, creatures with no arms at all. Creatures made of light and shadow and things he could not name. They all stopped and stared at him. He was the strangest thing here. A small human in dirty work clothes, standing in the middle of an alien spaceship. The gray men led him through endless corridors. The walls were made of something that looked like glass, but felt alive. Strange music played from somewhere, soft and haunting. Taiho's legs were tired by the time they finally stopped in front of 2 massive doors. The doors opened by themselves. Beyond them was a room so large Taiho could not see the other side. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into clouds. Thousands of beings filled the room, standing in perfect rows. They all turned to look at him. At the far end of the room, on a throne made of living crystal, sat a woman. She wore robes that looked like they were made of starlight. A crown of silver fire floated above her head. Her skin glowed faintly, like the moon. She was the most beautiful and terrifying thing Taiho had ever seen. And she was Vela. Taiho stopped walking. His mouth fell open. His brain tried to understand what his eyes were seeing, but it could not. The woman from the park, the woman who had eaten his sandwich, the woman who had cried when he held her hands, she was sitting on a throne. In space, with a crown on her head. "Taiho," she said. Her voice filled the entire room. It was the same voice, but different. Stronger, older, full of power. "Thank you for coming. I did not have much choice," Taiho said. His voice was weak and small in this vast space. Silence fell over the room. Every alien stopped breathing. They stared at Taiho like he had just insulted their gods. But Vela laughed. It was a real laugh. The same laugh she had given him in the park when he said something funny. The tension in the room shattered like glass. "No," she said, smiling. "I suppose you did not." She stood up from her throne and walked toward him. Every step she took made the floor glow beneath her feet. The other beings bowed as she passed, but she did not look at them. She only looked at Taiho. She stopped in front of him. Up close, she looked exactly the same as before. The same sad eyes, the same gentle face. But now there was something else. Power. Ancient, terrifying power. "I suppose I should explain," she said. "That would be nice." She smiled again. "I am Empress Vela, Supreme. Sovereign of the Galactic Union. I rule over 400 billion beings across 12,000 star systems." Taiho blinked. "Oh, is that all you have to say?" Taiho thought about it. He looked around at the massive throne room. He looked at the thousands of aliens watching him. He looked at the woman in front of him, who had eaten his egg salad sandwich just a few days ago. "I was worried you might be cold," he said finally. "You still have my jacket." Vela stared at him. Behind her, someone made a choking sound. An old alien with blue skin and a long robe stepped forward. "This is an outrage," he said. "How dare this primitive speak to the Supreme Sovereign with such disrespect? He should be on his knees. He should be begging for mercy." Vela turned to look at him. Her eyes flashed with something cold and dangerous. "Hi, Advisor Kale," she said calmly. "This man shared his food with me when I was hungry. He gave me his jacket when I was cold. He showed me kindness when I was a stranger. That is more than you have done in 200 years of service." The blue alien's mouth opened and closed like a fish. He had no response. Vela turned back to Taiho. Her expression softened. "He asked me what you did to enchant me," she said. "He thinks you used some kind of magic or trick." "I did not do anything," Taiho said, confused. "I just gave you a sandwich." Vela reached out and took his hand. Her touch was warm, just like before. "Yes," she said quietly. "You just gave me a sandwich and expected nothing in return." She looked into his eyes, and in that moment, Taiho finally understood. This woman, this empress, this ruler of billions, was lonely. She was surrounded by people who feared her, who wanted things from her, who saw her as a tool or a weapon. But Taiho had seen her as just a person, a hungry person who needed a sandwich, and that was everything. 3 weeks passed. Taiho stayed on the ship. He did not really have a choice. Vela had asked him to stay, and when the ruler of the galaxy asks you something, you do not say no. But the truth was, Taiho did not want to say no. For the first time in his life, he felt like he mattered. He was given a room bigger than his entire apartment back in Seoul. The bed was soft as clouds. The walls could show any view he wanted. He spent hours looking at Earth from space, watching the blue planet spin slowly in the darkness. But the best parts were his meetings with Vela. She would send for him at strange hours. Sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes during the day, Her schedule was impossible to understand. She ruled over 12,000 star systems, and there was always some crisis that needed her attention, but she always made time for Tai-Ho. They would sit in her private garden, a room filled with plants from 100 different worlds. She would ask him questions. Simple questions. What did breakfast taste like on Earth? What games did children play? What songs did people sing when they were happy? Tai-Ho answered everything honestly. He told her about rice and soup in the morning. He told her about hide and seek. He told her about birthday songs and wedding songs and songs people sang when they were drunk. She listened to every word like he was teaching her the secrets of the universe. Why do you want to know these things? Tai-Ho asked one day. You rule the galaxy. You have seen things I cannot even imagine. Why do you care about what humans eat for breakfast? Vila was quiet for a long moment. She looked at a flower beside her. It was purple and gold, and it glowed softly in the dark. I have been empress for 10,000 years, she said finally. Tai-Ho almost choked. 10,000 years. My species lives much longer than yours, but that is not the point. She looked at him with those endless eyes. In 10,000 years, I have forgotten what it means to be ordinary. I have forgotten what it means to have simple joys. To eat a meal just because you are hungry. To sit in a park just because you are tired. That sounds very lonely. It is. She touched the glowing flower gently. Everyone around me wants something. Power, favor, protection. They smile at me, but their smiles are lies. They bow to me, but they dream of taking my place. Tai-Ho thought about this. He thought about his own life. His tiny apartment. His boring job. His egg salad sandwiches. I never wanted anything from you, he said. I still do not want anything. I like talking to you. Vila looked at him. For a moment, her mask cracked. The powerful empress disappeared, and there was just a woman. A very old, very tired, very lonely woman. I know, she said. That is why you are here. The weeks passed quickly. Tai-Ho learned how to navigate the massive ship. He learned some words in alien languages. He made friends with some of the servants, who were confused by this strange human who treated them like equals, but not everyone was happy about his presence. Tai-Ho could feel the stares when he walked through the halls. He could hear the whispers behind his back. Who was this primitive creature? Why did the Empress spend so much time with him? What power did he have over her? High Advisor Kale was the worst. He never said anything directly, but his eyes were always cold when he looked at Tai-Ho. His smiles were sharp like knives. He was waiting for something, planning something. Tai-Ho tried not to think about it. He was just a construction worker from Busan. He had no power here. He had no enemies. He was nobody important. He was wrong. It happened on a quiet evening. Tai-Ho was walking back to his room after dinner when he heard a scream. It came from a side corridor. A young girl, one of the servants, was being attacked by two beings in dark armor. Tai-Ho did not think. He just ran. He threw himself at the attackers with all his strength. He had never been a fighter, but he had worked construction for 10 years. His body was strong. He knocked one of the attackers to the ground and punched him in the face. But the second attacker was ready. Tai-Ho felt a burning pain in his side. He looked down and saw blood. His blood. There was a knife in the attacker's hand, and it had cut him deep. Tai-Ho fell to the ground. The world became blurry. He heard the young girl screaming. He heard footsteps running. He heard voices shouting in languages he did not understand. And then he heard her voice. Move. It was Vela, but it was not the Vela he knew. This voice was cold, hard, terrifying. It was the voice of someone who had ruled for 10,000 years, someone who had destroyed armies and shattered empires. The attackers froze. Tai-Ho could see their faces through his fading vision. They were terrified. More terrified than he had ever seen anyone? Vela raised her hand. Light gathered around her fingers. Not warm light. Cold light. Deadly light. You dare, she said. You dare to hurt him. The attackers tried to run. They did not get far. Tai-Ho closed his eyes. He did not want to see what happened next. But he heard it. A sound like thunder. a sound like screaming, and then silence. When he opened his eyes again, Bella was kneeling beside him. Her hands were on his wound. They were glowing with soft golden light. The pain began to fade. "You foolish brave man," she whispered. Her voice was shaking. There were tears in her eyes. "You could have died. You almost died. For a servant girl, you do not even know." "She was scared," Taiho said weakly. "I could not just walk away. Most people would have, and most people are wrong." Vila laughed, but it was a broken sound. Half laugh, half sob. She pulled him close and held him tight. Her body was shaking. "I cannot lose you," she whispered. "I have lost so much. So many people. So many worlds. I cannot lose you too." Taiho was too weak to respond, but he managed to lift his hand and pat her back gently. "I am okay," he said. "It is just a little cut. It is not just a little cut. You almost died, but I did not die. So it is okay." Vela pulled back and looked at him. Her eyes were red from crying. Her face was wet with tears. She looked nothing like an empress. She looked like a woman who had almost lost someone she loved. "The people who did this," she said, and her voice turned cold again. "They will pay. Everyone who planned this will pay. I will find them. All of them. And I will make them understand what happens when they touch the things I care about." Taiho had never seen such anger in anyone's eyes. It was ancient anger, patient anger. The anger of someone who had 10,000 years to plan their revenge. He should have been scared, but instead he felt safe. For the first time since coming to this strange place, he felt like he was home. The galaxy learned to fear the Empress again. For centuries, she had been calm, patient, merciful. Some of the noble houses had forgotten what she was capable of. They had grown bold. They had made plans. They had decided that a simple human was a threat that needed to be removed. They were wrong. The investigation took 3 days. Vila found every person involved in the attack, every noble who had funded it, every advisor who had known and stayed silent, every servant who had looked the other way. She destroyed them all. Not killed, destroyed. Their houses were dissolved. Their names were erased from history. Their children were stripped of titles and scattered across the galaxy. In 1 week, 7 noble families that had existed for thousands of years simply disappeared. It was like they had never existed at all. The message was clear. The Empress had found something she cared about, and anyone who threatened it would face consequences beyond imagination. Taiho recovered quickly. The medical technology on the ship was far beyond anything on Earth. Within a week, his wound had healed completely. Not even a scar remained, but something had changed. Vela was different now. She smiled more. She laughed more. She touched Taiho's arm when they talked, like she needed to make sure he was still real. "You scared me," she admitted one night. They were sitting in her private garden, watching stars drift by through the crystal ceiling. "I have not been scared in a very long time." "I am sorry," Taiho said. "Do not be sorry. Be more careful." "I will try. But if someone is in danger, I will probably do the same thing again." Vila sighed. "I know. That is what worries me." He sat in comfortable silence. Taiho looked at the woman beside him, this ancient, powerful being who ruled over billions, who had lived for 10,000 years, who could destroy worlds with a wave of her hand, and she was worried about him. "A construction worker from Busan. Can I ask you something?" Taiho said. "Anything." "Why me?" Vela turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" "You could have anyone in the galaxy. Princes, heroes, geniuses, people who are powerful and important. Why do you spend time with me? I am nobody. I have nothing to offer you." Vila was quiet for a long time. She looked up at the stars, her eyes reflecting the distant light. "When I was young," she said finally, "before I became Empress, I had a teacher. She was a kind old woman from a planet that no longer exists. She told me something I never forgot." "What did she tell you?" "She said that the measure of a civilization is not its technology, not its power, not its wealth. The true measure is how its people treat strangers, how they treat those who cannot give them anything in return." She turned to look at Taiho. Her eyes were soft. In 10,000 years, I have visited millions of worlds. I have met countless beings, and almost all of them have failed that test. They are kind when it benefits them. They are generous when they expect reward. They are good when someone is watching. She reached out and took his hand. But you shared your sandwich with a stranger who could give you nothing? You gave your jacket to a woman you had just met? You threw yourself at armed attackers to save a servant girl. You did these things not because you expected reward, but because it was right. Taiho felt his face grow warm. Anyone would do the same. No, Vela said firmly. They would not. That is what makes you special. That is what makes your species special. She stood up suddenly, pulling him to his feet. Come with me, she said. There is something I want to show you. She led him through the ship, through corridors he had never seen before. They arrived at a massive chamber. Inside were thousands of seats, arranged in a circle around a central platform. Every seat was filled with strange beings from across the galaxy. This is the Galactic Senate, Vela said. The leaders of every major world in the Union. She walked to the center of the platform. Taiho followed, his heart pounding. Every eye in the chamber was on them. Vela raised her hand, and the room fell silent. For 10,000 years, she said, her voice filling the chamber, we have measured civilizations by their power, their technology, their ability to conquer and control. We have looked down on younger species. We have called them primitive, backward, unworthy of our attention. She paused. The silence was absolute. We were wrong. Whispers filled the chamber. Shocked faces looked at each other. The Empress never admitted mistakes. I have spent time among the humans of Earth, she continued. A species so young they have barely left their own planet. A species with technology we consider primitive, a species we dismiss without thought. She turned and looked at Taiho. Her eyes were shining, and in that time, I learned more about civilization than I have learned in 10,000 years of rule. I learned that true strength is not the power to destroy, it is the power to care. The power to give without expecting return. The power to see a stranger and offer them half your meal. She faced the Senate again. Therefore, I am declaring Earth a teacher world, not a colony, not a protectorate. A place where the children of the galaxy will go to learn what we have forgotten, how to be kind, how to be human. The chamber exploded with noise. Some were shouting in approval. Some were shouting in protest. But Vela did not listen to any of them. She walked back to Taiho and took his hand. Was that okay? She asked quietly, suddenly uncertain. I should have asked you first. Taiho laughed. He could not help it. This woman had just changed galactic history, and she was asking if it was okay. It was perfect, he said. Vela smiled. For the first time since he met her, she looked happy. Truly, completely happy. Years passed. The galaxy changed in ways no one had expected. Ships from 100 worlds came to Earth, not to conquer, not to study, but to learn. Young aliens walked the streets of Seoul and Tokyo and New York. They ate in restaurants. They played in parks. They learned what it meant to be kind for no reason at all, and in a small park in Seoul. On a bench near a broken fountain, two people sat together. Taiho unwrapped a sandwich and tore it in half. He handed one piece to the woman beside him. You've gotten better at making these, Vela said, taking a bite. I've had a lot of practice. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Above them, starships from across the galaxy hung in peaceful orbit. Children of 100 species played together in the streets. The universe was changing, one small kindness at a time. Taiho, Vela said softly. Yes. Thank you for what? For the sandwich? For everything. Taiho smiled and put his arm around her. The most powerful being in the galaxy. And all she really wanted was someone to share a meal with. Maybe that was what the universe needed all along. Not more weapons. Not more power. Just more sandwiches. Just more people willing to share them. The sun set over Seoul. The stars came out one by one. And somewhere in the vastness of space, The galaxy was finally learning what it meant to be human. It had all started with a man who thought a stranger looked hungry. And it ended with a universe that was a little bit kinder. That was the power of humanity. That was the gift they gave to the stars, one sandwich at a time.